the Korean Mafia boss who hated black women. Until he met her. The bulletproof glass of his Bentley reflected Seoul's neon chaos. But Lee Jae-hwan saw only her face, the woman in emerald silk who'd looked him dead in the eye and said, "Power without humanity is just well-dressed cowardice." No one had ever spoken to him like that, and lived to smile about it. But she had. And now, for the first time in 38 years, the most feared man in Korea's underworld couldn't stop his hands from trembling. Welcome. Subscribe now for captivating tales, suspenseful twists, and unforgettable characters. Your next story adventure starts here. The chandelier in the Seoul Sky Gardens ballroom cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Lee Jae-hwan knew this because he'd made the owner pay triple for the privilege of hosting tonight's political gala in a venue that laundered money through his syndicate every month. He stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand, watching politicians and businessmen pretend they weren't terrified of him. They should be terrified. At 38, Jae-hwan controlled half of Seoul's underground empire. The Kwanpa Syndicate didn't just run casinos and smuggling operations. They owned judges, manipulated stock markets, and made people disappear with a single phone call. His tailored Tom Ford suit, slick-back black hair, and cold obsidian eyes made him look like he belonged in a corporate boardroom. But everyone knew the truth. The dragon tattoo, hidden beneath his collar, told a different story. Jae-hwan's a sweating assemblyman approached, bowing so low his forehead nearly touched his champagne glass. "Thank you for your continued support of our infrastructure bill." Jae-hwan's expression didn't change. "The bill passes next week, or your son's gambling debts become public knowledge. We're clear." The man's face went white. Crystal clear. "Good. Leave." This was Jae-hwan's world. Transactions without warmth, power without mercy, control without compromise. His father had built the Kwanpa from nothing, teaching him a single philosophy. Trust no one. Feel nothing. Show weakness never. And there was one more rule, whispered in his childhood like a commandment. Stay with your own kind. His father had been specific about what that meant. Korean blood, Korean tradition, Korean women who understood hierarchy and obedience. When Jae-hwan was 12, his father had beaten him for bowing politely to a black American diplomat's daughter at reception. "They are not like us," his father had hissed, grip bruising Jae-hwan's arm. "Never forget where you come from. Never disgrace this family." The lesson had carved itself into Jae-hwan's bones. He'd built an empire on discipline, on the cold elimination of anything that didn't serve his purpose. Romance was transactional. Women came and went. Appropriate women, ones who understood their place in his world, who asked no questions about the blood on his hands. He felt nothing for them. He felt nothing for anyone. Until tonight, Jae-hwan had been seconds from leaving. This gala was a tedious obligation, a performance of legitimacy for men who needed to believe he was just another businessman. When the ballroom doors opened and she walked in, the world didn't stop. The string quartet kept playing. The politicians kept laughing. But Jae-hwan's breath caught in his throat like he'd been struck. She was tall, nearly 6 feet in heels, with rich brown skin that seemed to capture and reflect the chandelier light. Her dress was emerald silk, cut with a sophistication that screamed power, not seduction. Natural hair framed her face in an elegant updo. She moved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who'd never needed anyone's approval. She was black, and she was magnificent. Jae-hwan's fingers tightened around his whiskey glass. His father's voice echoed in his skull. But for the first time, he found himself pushing it away. He watched her decline champagne from a server, scan the room with intelligent eyes, and politely extract herself from a politician's too enthusiastic greeting. She didn't look overwhelmed. She looked bored. "Who is that?" Jae-hwan asked his second-in-command, Min-soo, who materialized at his elbow like a shadow. Min-soo followed his gaze and pulled out his phone, fingers flying. "Amara Sloan, American, CEO of Sloan International Tech. They're expanding into the Korean market. AI infrastructure, smart city development. She's here courting investors and government contracts." Sloan International, Jae-hwan repeated. He knew the name. They were legitimate, powerful, the kind of company that could shift markets with a single announcement. And she ran it. "Want me to arrange an introduction?" Min-soo asked, a knowing edge in his voice. Jae-hwan didn't answer. He was already moving. He crossed the ballroom with the same predatory grace that made rival gang bosses nervous. People parted instinctively. But when he reached her, standing alone near a sculpture of twisted metal, she didn't move. She turned to face him, and her eyes, deep brown, sharp as knives, met his without flinching. "Lee Jae-hwan," she said, not a question. Her Korean pronunciation was flawless. The rumors don't do you justice. He'd been preparing a polite introduction, the kind of calculated charm he used to manipulate politicians. Instead, he found himself genuinely curious. What rumors? That you're the most dangerous man in Seoul. Her lips curved into a slight smile. That you control more of this city than the mayor. That you've never lost a negotiation. And what do you think? I think rumors are just stories people tell when they don't understand power. She sipped water from a crystal glass. Real power doesn't need to announce itself. Jae-hwan felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Not attraction, not yet, but something close to respect. "You're not from here." Obviously. Her tone was dry, amused. "Does that bother you?" The question landed like a challenge. Jae-hwan studied her. This woman who'd walked into a room full of Korea's elite and somehow seemed more comfortable than anyone else. "Should it? You tell me. You've been staring at me since I walked in. You noticed. I always notice when someone's deciding whether I belong somewhere." She set down her glass. "Let me save you the trouble. I belong everywhere I choose to be." Jae-hwan laughed. He couldn't remember the last time he genuinely laughed. "You're either very brave or very foolish. Neither. Just tired of men who think their reputation intimidates me." She held out her hand. Amara Sloan. He took it. Her grip was firm, confident. "What brings you to Seoul, Miss Sloan?" "Business. Investment. Maybe a little bit of proving people wrong." Her eyes held his. "What about you? Do you attend these things because you enjoy watching powerful men pretend they're not afraid of you?" "Something like that. Must get boring." "It does." "Then why stay?" No one asked him questions like this. No one challenged him. Jae-hwan found himself speaking more honestly than he had in years. Obligation. Appearances. Control. Sound exhausting. "It is." Amara tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made him feel exposed. "You know what I think, Mr. Lee? I think you're not nearly as cold as you want everyone to believe." The words hit him like a physical blow. He opened his mouth to respond. With what? He didn't know. But she was already turning away. "It was interesting meeting you," she said over her shoulder. "Maybe we'll see each other again." Then she was gone, gliding toward the exit, leaving Jae-hwan standing alone with his untouched whiskey and a feeling he couldn't name. Min-soo appeared again. "Boss, find out everything about her," Jae-hwan said quietly. "Everything." He watched the ballroom doors close behind Amara Sloan and felt something crack in the fortress he'd built around himself. His father's voice whispered warnings. But for the first time in his life, Jae-hwan didn't want to listen. Before I reveal the next shocking part, hit subscribe and comment your prediction right now. Don't cheat. Jae-hwan didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse overlooking the Han River. Min-soo's research files spread across his glass desk like evidence of a crime he was about to commit. Amara Sloan's face stared back at him from a Forbes magazine cover. The tech queen who built an empire from code. 34 years old. Born in Atlanta, Georgia. Graduated MIT at 20. Built Sloan International from a startup in her garage to a multi-billion-dollar corporation in 12 years. No husband. No children. No scandals. Just brilliance, ambition, and a reputation for destroying anyone who underestimated her. She was everything his world had taught him to dismiss, and he couldn't stop thinking about her. This is dangerous, Min-soo had warned before leaving. She's not someone you can control. Good, Jae-hwan had thought. He was tired of control. 3 days later, fate threw them together again at the Seoul Global Tech Summit. Jae-hwan attended because the Kwanpa had investments in cybersecurity firms that needed legitimizing. He told himself he wasn't looking for her. He was lying. She stood on stage in a crimson power suit, commanding an audience of 2,000 like she owned them. Her presentation on AI ethics was sharp, provocative, unapologetic. She challenged the Korean tech giants directly, calling out their data privacy violations by name. Half the room looked ready to walk out. The other half looked ready to worship her. Jae-hwan sat in the back, fascinated. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. She didn't smile. just nodded once and walked off stage like a general leaving a conquered battlefield. He found her an hour later in the summit's private lounge, reviewing notes on a tablet. She didn't look up when he approached. "Brave speech," Jae-hwan said. "You made some powerful enemies today." "I make powerful enemies every day, Mr. Lee." Now she looked up, and that knowing smile returned. "It's kind of my specialty. Mind if I sit? Would it matter if I did?" He sat anyway. Up close, she was even more striking. High cheekbones, full lips, eyes that seemed to read him like code. "You called out Chairman Park's company specifically. He controls 40% of Korea's telecommunications. I know exactly who he controls." Amara set down her tablet. "Let me guess. You're here to warn me to be careful? Tell me, I don't understand how things work in Seoul." "Actually, I was going to say you were right. His company's been violating user privacy for years. Someone needed to say it publicly." That surprised her. Her expression softened slightly. "You agree with me? I deal in information, Ms. Sloan. I know exactly what Park's been doing." Jae-hwan leaned back. "I also know you could have made that point diplomatically, but you chose confrontation." "Why?" "Because diplomatic women get ignored." Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. "Confrontational women get remembered. They also get targeted. Let them try." She met his eyes directly. "I didn't build my company by being afraid of powerful men. I'm certainly not starting now." Jae-hwan felt that unfamiliar stirring again, stronger this time, almost overwhelming. Attraction, yes, but something deeper. Recognition, like seeing a mirror of himself in someone he'd been taught to never see. "Have dinner with me," he said. Amara laughed. A genuine, musical sound. "That's not a question." "No, it's not. Why would I have dinner with you, Mr. Lee? So you can warn me about Korean business culture? Explain how a black woman should behave to succeed here?" "No," he held her gaze. "So I can figure out why you're the first person in 10 years to make me feel nervous." Silence stretched between them. Somewhere in the lounge, glasses clinked. Phones buzzed. The world continued. But in that moment, everything balanced on her next word. "One dinner," Amara finally said. "But I choose the restaurant. And if you bore me, I'm leaving." Jae-hwan smiled. A real smile that felt strange on his face. "Deal." She stood, gathering her things with elegant efficiency. 8 o'clock. Mingle's restaurant in Itaewon. "Don't be late, Mr. Lee." "Jae-hwan," he said. "Call me Jae-hwan. We'll see if you earn that." She walked away, leaving him with a racing heart and the certainty that his carefully controlled world was about to shatter completely. Jae-hwan arrived at Mingle's 15 minutes early, which never happened. He'd changed suits 3 times, which definitely never happened. Min-soo had watched with barely concealed amusement as the most feared man in Seoul obsessed over a dinner like a teenager on a first date. "You're losing focus, boss," Min-soo had said. "Maybe." But Jae-hwan couldn't bring himself to care. Amara arrived exactly at 8, wearing black slacks and a gold silk blouse that made her skin glow. She slid into the booth across from him, no apology, no explanation, just presence. "You look nervous," she observed. "I'm not nervous." "Liar." She ordered in perfect Korean, impressing their server. When they were alone, she continued, "So, Jae-hwan, tell me something real. Not the Mafia boss performance. Not the cold businessman act. Something true." No one asked him for truth. They asked for orders, for mercy, for deals. Never truth. "I don't remember the last time I wanted something I couldn't take," he admitted. "And you want me?" "Yes." Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, surprise, maybe at his honesty. "Why? Because I'm a challenge? Because I didn't bow and scrape? Because you see through the performance," Jae-hwan said quietly. "Everyone else sees the dragon. You see the man underneath." Amara was silent for a long moment. Then, "My father was a pastor in Atlanta. Died when I was 16. Heart attack during Sunday service. Everyone said I should grieve properly, be a good church girl, marry someone respectable." She smiled bitterly. "Instead, I learned to code, build companies, became everything they said a black girl from the South couldn't be. You know what I learned?" "What?" "That people will always tell you who you're supposed to be. The secret is not listening." Their food arrived, but neither touched it. They talked instead about loneliness at the top, about the weight of expectations, about building empires that never felt like home. Jae-hwan told her about his father's brutality, the beatings disguised as discipline. Amara shared stories of venture capitalists who'd called her aggressive for negotiating like a man would. They threw a stapler at me once, she said, laughing darkly. Said I was too intense for investment. So I built the company without them and bought their firm 5 years later. Jae-hwan raised his glass. To revenge. To proving them wrong. She clinked her glass against his. Better than revenge. Hours dissolved. The restaurant emptied. They moved to the Han River, walking along the illuminated pathways, talking about everything and nothing. Seoul glittered around them like fallen stars. Can I ask you something? Amara stopped walking, facing him. Why did you really want this dinner? And don't give me a line. Jae-hwan looked at her. This brilliant, fierce woman who'd somehow cracked open something inside him he thought was dead. Because you make me want to be someone different. Someone better. I'm not here to fix you, Jae-hwan. I know. That's why it matters. She studied him with those penetrating eyes. Then, slowly, she reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, solid, real. I'm only in Seoul for 3 months, she said softly. My company's expansion, then I return to the States. This, whatever this is, it has an expiration date. Then we have 3 months. You'd waste 3 months on something temporary? Jae-hwan pulled her closer, close enough to smell her perfume. Jasmine and something uniquely her. Nothing about you feels temporary. She kissed him first, urgent, searching like she needed to prove this was real. He responded with a hunger that terrified him, hands tangling in her hair, all his control shattering against the reality of her mouth on his. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Amara whispered, "This is dangerous. I know. Your world won't accept me. My world won't understand you. I know that too." She kissed him again, softer this time. Then let's be dangerous together. They stood on the riverbank, Seoul sprawling around them, two people who shouldn't fit, but somehow did, perfectly, impossibly, dangerously. Jae-hwan had spent his life controlling everything. For the first time, he surrendered completely. Pause the shock. Subscribe immediately, because if you thought this was crazy, you're not ready for what's next. The photographs hit the internet within 48 hours. Jae-hwan and Amara at the river, hands intertwined. Jae-hwan and Amara leaving her hotel together at dawn. The headlines were vicious. Mafia King's black obsession and asterisk Kwanpa boss slumming with foreign woman. Jae-hwan's phone exploded with calls from syndicate elders demanding explanations. Min-soo fielded threats from rival gangs who saw weakness, opportunity. Even legitimate business partners distanced themselves, worried about appearances. He ignored them all, but the Korean elite were harder to dismiss. At a charity gala 2 weeks later, the whispers became weapons. Old women in designer hanbok clutched their pearls when Amara entered on Jae-hwan's arm, stunning in a black gown that hugged every curve. Men stared with barely concealed disgust or lust. Jae-hwan wanted to break them all. They're looking at me like I'm a zoo animal, Amara murmured, her smile fixed. Let them look. His hand found the small of her back, possessive, protective. Then Park Ji-yeon appeared, Jae-hwan's ex-lover, a prosecutor's daughter who'd warmed his bed for 6 calculated months. She was beautiful in the traditional way. Pale skin, delicate features, everything his father would have approved of. Jae-hwan appa, Ji-yeon cooed, deliberately ignoring Amara. Everyone's talking about your new interest. How exotic. The word landed like a slap. Amara's spine straightened, but Jae-hwan spoke first, voice deadly quiet. Her name is Amara. Use it. Of course. Ji-yeon's smile was poisonous. I just wonder, is this rebellion? Midlife crisis? Because everyone knows you'll get bored. You always do. And then you'll come back to someone appropriate. Something dark unfurled in Jae-hwan's chest. His father's voice, his father's prejudices, ugly and familiar. Asterisk, she's right. This won't last. You're destroying everything for a woman who doesn't belong. Asterisk. He hated that the voice was his own. Before he could respond, socialite Kim Min-hee, chairwoman of 3 major charities and Seoul's most vicious gossip, descended with her entourage. She looked at Amara like something distasteful on her expensive shoes. Miss Sloan, isn't it? How brave of you to attend our little gathering. Min-hee's English was deliberately condescending. Tell me, do you understand our customs? Our traditions? Or is this just a business arrangement? Amara's expression remained serene, But Jae-hwan felt her hand tighten on his arm. I understand more than you think, Mrs. Kim, including the custom of basic human decency, something your comment lacked. Min-hee's face flushed red. How dare, enough. Jae-hwan's voice cut through the ballroom like a blade. The string quartet faltered. Conversations died. Every eye turned to them. He'd spent his life controlling his image, maintaining careful neutrality in public, never showing weakness. But watching these people try to diminish Amara, this extraordinary woman who'd somehow chosen him despite everything, ignited something volcanic. Let me be clear, he continued, voice carrying to every corner of the hall. Amara Sloan is here with me because I choose to be with her. Not as rebellion, not as experiment, because she is remarkable, brilliant, and more honorable than anyone in this room pretending to have class while demonstrating none. Min-hee gasped. Ji-yeon's mouth fell open. Jae-hwan felt the old rules crumbling, his father's ghost screaming in fury. He didn't care. If anyone has further comments about the woman I love, the word escaped before he could stop it, but he didn't take it back. You can address them to me directly, and we'll see how brave you are then. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. Then Amara squeezed his hand, 3 times, a code they developed. Asterisk, I see you. Thank you. Let's go, asterisk. They walked out together, leaving Seoul's elite in scandalized chaos. Outside, under the stars, Amara turned to him. Tears glistened in her eyes, but she was smiling. You said you love me. I did. Jae-hwan cupped her face, thumbs brushing her cheeks. I do. That was incredibly stupid. You just made yourself a target. Then we're targets together. She kissed him like oxygen, like salvation. I love you too, you reckless idiot. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Korean media outlets ran hit pieces questioning Amara's credentials, calling her a diversity hire, despite her MIT degree and billion-dollar company. American tabloids painted Jae-hwan as a criminal using her for legitimacy. Social media exploded with racist vitriol that made Amara's hands shake when she scrolled through it. Listen to this one, she said one night in her apartment, voice hollow. She's just a phase. He'll throw her away when he's done playing. She threw her phone on the couch. Maybe they're right. Jae-hwan crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her against his chest. They're not right. They're terrified. Of what? Of us. Of what we represent. That their ugly little prejudices don't control the world anymore. He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. I see you, Amara. Not your skin, not your nationality, not what anyone else projects onto you. I see you. The woman who built an empire, who challenges me, who makes me want to be better. That's who I love. She buried her face in his shoulder, and he felt her tears soak through his shirt. Your world is so dangerous. The threats, the violence, the syndicate rivalries. I'm not built for this. You're built for anything. You're the strongest person I know. I'm scared, Jae-hwan. So am I. He kissed her forehead, her temples, her lips. But I'm more scared of losing you. The real test came 2 weeks later. Rival syndicate leader Choi Sung-min, who'd been trying to absorb Kwanpa territories for years, leaked evidence of Jae-hwan's illegal operations to prosecutors. The message was clear. Choose your empire or choose her. Min-soo delivered the news in Jae-hwan's office, face grim. Choi's giving you an out. Drop the American woman, marry someone appropriate, and the evidence disappears. If you refuse, they'll prosecute. You'll lose everything. Jae-hwan stared at Seoul's skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. His empire, his legacy, everything his father built, everything he'd killed to protect. Or Amara. Schedule a press conference, he said quietly. Boss, schedule it. Tomorrow. National broadcast. Min-soo's eyes widened. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. The next day, Jae-hwan stood before cameras at the Seoul Business Convention Center, Amara beside him. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. The entire country watched. My name is Lee Jae-hwan, he began, voice steady. You know me as a businessman, as someone with complicated connections. Today, I'm here as simply a man in love. He took Amara's hand, ignoring the gasps from the press corps. This woman, Amara Sloan, has been subjected to racism, threats, and cruelty because of me. Because our love doesn't fit into neat boxes that make people comfortable. But I'm done caring about comfort. I'm done hiding. Amara's fingers tightened around his. To those who think this is temporary, who call her a phase or worse. You're wrong. She is my partner, my equal, the person who saw past every wall I built and loved me anyway. If choosing her means losing business deals, losing respect from people whose respect I never wanted, then I choose her gladly. Asterisk if you believe love transcends prejudice. Drop a comment saying love wins. Only bigots and haters stay silent. Asterisk. He turned to Amara, speaking only to her now. Cameras forgotten. You asked if you belong in my dangerous world. The truth is, my world doesn't deserve you. But I'm selfish enough to want you anyway. To fight for you anyway. To build something new with you. Something neither of us has to survive alone. Tears streamed down Amara's face. You're impossible. Is that a yes? That's always been a yes. They kissed in front of the entire nation, defiant, unashamed, free. The press conference became the most watched broadcast in Korean history. Social media fractured between supporters and detractors. But Jae-hwan didn't care anymore. He'd found something worth more than power. He'd found home. 6 months later, Jae-hwan stood on the banks of the Han River at sunset, the Seoul skyline blazing gold and crimson behind him. His hands trembled as he checked the ring box in his pocket for the 100th time. Min-soo had set everything up perfectly. Rose petals scattered along the pathway, string lights woven through the trees, a private section cordoned off from curious onlookers. But Jae-hwan's carefully rehearsed speech had evaporated from his mind. Then Amara appeared, and nothing else mattered. She wore a simple white dress, natural hair flowing free, and when she saw the setup, her hand flew to her mouth. Jae-hwan, let me say this before I lose my nerve. He took her hands, feeling her pulse race beneath his fingers. A year ago, I was a man who believed in nothing but power. I built walls so high that I couldn't remember what warmth felt like. I convinced myself that being alone was strength. Jae-hwan, then you walked into that gala like you owned the world, and you looked at me, really looked at me, and saw someone worth saving. You challenged every prejudice I'd been taught, every ugly belief I'd let poison me. You didn't fix me, but you made me want to fix myself. Tears already streamed down her face. You're going to make me ruin my makeup. He dropped to one knee, and she gasped. The ring box opened, revealing a diamond surrounded by emeralds, the color of the dress she'd worn the night they met. Amara Sloan, you taught me that love isn't weakness. That opening your heart doesn't mean losing control. That the bravest thing a man can do is be vulnerable with someone who matters. His voice cracked. You matter. You're everything. And I don't want to spend another day pretending I'm complete without you. Yes, she whispered. I didn't ask yet. I don't care. Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and stood, kissing her as the sun dipped below the skyline, painting them both in liquid gold. She laughed and cried simultaneously, and Jae-hwan thought his chest might explode from the sheer, impossible joy of it. The wedding 3 months later was unlike anything Seoul had ever seen. Amara wore both a traditional white gown and a stunning African Kent cloth dress. Jae-hwan wore a hanbok for the ceremony, then changed into a Western tuxedo for the reception. Her family flew in from Atlanta, her mother clutching him fiercely, whispering thank you for seeing my daughter. His syndicate attended alongside her tech executives, an impossible mix that somehow worked. During his vows, Jae-hwan's voice rang clear. I was taught to hate what I didn't understand. You taught me that ignorance is a choice, and love is braver. I vow to choose bravery every day. I vow to stand beside you against every storm. I vow to build a world where our children never learn the hatred that almost kept me from finding you. Amara's vows were simpler. You were broken. I was guarded. Together, we're whole. I choose you, Lee Jae-hwan. In this life and whatever comes after. Their kiss brought the house down. Years later, holding their daughter, a perfect blend of them both, Jae-hwan would remember the man he'd been. Cold, closed, convinced he was unworthy of softness.